revolves around the Haruno family, who lives in a small village in Japan. At the beginning of the movie, the grandfather plays with the youngest daughter, Sachiko Haruno. As the little girl sits alone behind her, we see her doppelganger, double the size of her. Sachiko has been troubled by this massive version of herself, following her around. She thinks of ways to get rid of it often, but has never actually tried anything. One day at school, she is in the morning assembly, yawning because she is bored. At the same time, she sees her larger self sitting on the bars and yawning as well. In the classroom, Sachiko dives into her thoughts and thinks of ways to get rid of the giant. She remembers a story her uncle Ayano had told her and her brother a few years back. When Ayano was just a boy, there used to be a large forest called the Haunted Forest. People used to say that the forest was cursed and anyone who went there attracted spirits. One day, Ayano was roaming around the jungle, collecting birds' eggs, but he had forgotten to go to the toilet before leaving, so he was struggling to hold it in. He tells himself that he can make it home in time, but changes his mind when he sees a large egg on the ground. He decides to defecate on the egg. After that, as he pulls his pants up, he notices that the egg is half underground. He starts thinking about why someone buried such a massive egg instead of bringing it home with them. Then he sees the feces on top of the egg and thinks that defecating on it might be weirder than burying it. Thinking about a lot of things, he leaves the jungle for the day. Since the thought of the egg never leaves his mind, Ayano goes back on another day to look for it. But since he is not familiar with the jungle, he never finds the egg again. However, Ayano doesn't give up and looks for the egg every day, until one day, a man with several tattoos and blood dripping from his body appears in front of him. Ayano looks at him in fear, but the man says nothing. From that day onwards, he sees the man everywhere. At first, Ayano is terrified and bothered by the stranger following him, but with time, he gets used to being followed. He also mentions that the stranger had feces on his head. One day, when Ayano was able to do a flip on the playground bar, the man disappeared and never came back again. Sachiko also contemplates learning to do a backflip to get rid of her giant. But what she doesn't know is that the day the man stopped following Ayano, the police had found a skull buried in the forest with feces on top of it. So it turns out the egg Ayano defecated on was actually a human skull. In the following scene, we see Sachiko's elder brother, Hajime, in his school. He has a love letter in his hands, addressed to him by some girl. She calls him to meet in a restaurant after school. Later, we see 4 of Hajime's friends in this restaurant talking about girls. One of them is dressed as a girl as well. As they talk, we find out that the love letter was actually left by them, so they can prank Hajime. Just then, Hajime cycles towards the restaurant, and the boys get ready to prank him. However, to their disappointment, he cycles to his home without stopping by the restaurant. A voice narrates to us that Hajime has lost his faith in relationships after he heard a couple fighting about cosmetic surgeries in a restaurant, and after he saw a guy who was beaten by his girlfriend. Next, we see Hajime and Sachiko's mother, Yoshiko, at her job. She works as a designer in animated film projects. Her boss is a pervert who wants to get together with Yoshiko. That day, he scolds a worker for bringing her pet to work. Later at night, everyone is at home when the father, Nobuo, plays a board game called Go with Hajime. The boy has been playing the game for a long time and is getting quite good at it. The next day at school, a student named Suzuishi is transferred to Hajime's class. He instantly develops feelings for the girl, but is too shy to even talk to her. After school, we see grandfather Akira, Ayano, Sachiko, and mother Yoshiko drinking tea together. They stay in silence for a very long time, enjoying the beverage. Sometime later, Sachiko runs to the living room and stares into nothingness. Her giant doppelganger is also beside her, sitting in silence. Fed up with the giant, she finally decides to learn to do a backflip on a bar and get rid of it. She runs to a restricted area nearby, where lies a deserted playground. However, she looks at the playing bar for a long time and returns back home without trying to play on it. The following day at school, a girl asks the new transfer student, Suzuishi, what club she will choose for after-school practice. Suzuishi says that she wants to join the board game Go club. Hajime hears this and is over the moon, knowing that he and Suzuishi share an interest. On his way back home, he cycles while fantasizing about Suzuishi. Later, when he is alone in his room, Hajime fantasizes an elaborate fake scenario and fights imaginary men to save his girl. In the following scene, he is back in school that evening. Suzuishi is with her friend, talking, as he spies on her from afar. After a while, he meets his father while returning home on a metro. They both witness two men in some kind of costumes making noise and clicking pictures. When they get off the metro, the men get in a fight with some strangers, and the father and the son run away from the scene. Now, the family is at the dinner table as the two tell of what they saw in the metro. Ayano almost doesn't believe them because of the absurdity of the incident. The next day, the mother of the family, Yoshiko, is at work. Before leaving, she asks her boss not to call her the following day because she is on leave. It is evident that he has been bothering her to go out with him. He promises to leave her alone, but as soon as she leaves, he calls her husband and tells him Yoshiko is cheating on him. Yoshiko, who is just outside the door, hears this and attacks her boss for spreading rumors about her. Cut to the next scene. Sachiko wakes up to a nightmare of her and her doppelganger swimming together. She runs to the abandoned playground again and gets on the play bar for the first time. At the same time, Ayano goes to a shop owned by his ex-girlfriend, who is now married to another man. He talks to her awkwardly at first, but then opens up and says he is glad she is happy in her life. The girl says the same, and the two separate after getting a closure of their relationship. After that, he lays by the side of a river to relax. He notices a man his age dancing nearby and befriends him. The next day, Yoshiko gets a call from her boss, who wants Uncle Ayano's help. Since Ayano is a manga artist and a record producer, he wants him to record a song. He even invites grandfather Akira to be in his music video. At first, Ayano declines to record his song, but he eventually agrees after the family asks him to. The grandfather is very happy to be a part of the song and begins singing day and night. Later that day, Sachiko is in her classroom and her giant companion is watching her while lying on the school's playground. After school, she goes to the playground again to practice backflipping. This time, her grandfather watches her from afar and is relieved that she isn't doing something harmful. He leaves soon after. At night, Ayano brings his new friend over for dinner. After dinner, the family sits together as the father Nobuo, who happens to be a hypnotherapist, performs a procedure on everyone to make them relax. He tries to hypnotize everyone, but it only works on Yoshiko, Ayano, and his new friend. The three fall unconscious while sitting up. After a while, they regain their consciousness and say that they feel rejuvenated. The mother, Yoshiko, explains to her daughter how it feels to be hypnotized, since she didn't get to enjoy the experience. She describes it as being able to move freely in space. The next day, Hajime goes to the library to return some books on the board game Go. The members of the Go Club notice his interest and invite him to join the club since they are low on members. Hajime shyly accepts the offer and goes to the club with them. Suzuishi is there too. He plays a game against a boy and easily wins it as Suzuishi watches. However, she leaves right after without talking to him. At the same time, Sachiko is at the playground practicing doing a backflip when a man's head emerges from the ground. Sachiko runs away in fear and is caught by two men. She tells them about the Mud Man. The three return to the playground and rescue the man, who claims he had been stuck underground for 3 days. At night, she tells the story to her mother and two of her co-workers who have come over for dinner. Some days later, Ayano records a song for Akira and Yoshiko's boss. After listening to the awful song, Ayano and his co-workers are shown flying to the sky. One day at school, Suzuishi is playing a game of Go with a friend, but he leaves midway. As she packs up, Hajime enters the room. He sees she is alone and is about to leave, but Suzuishi challenges him to a game of Go. The two begin to play in silence. All of a sudden, Hajime tells Suzuishi that it was his dream to play a match of Go with her. Suzuishi then tells him that they should play every day. After the game, they leave the school together under the same umbrella. Hajime is over the moon to finally be able to talk to his crush. The next day at work, Yoshiko presents her animation to her coworkers. It is inspired by the feelings she goes through when she is hypnotized. Everyone loves the animation and claps for Yoshiko in appreciation. Back at home, Sachiko peeps into her grandfather's room to see him lying limp on the floor. In the following scene, we see the whole family in a metro returning home after the grandfather's funeral. Later, the four of them sit at the front porch and drink tea in silence, remembering their grandfather. Then, they go into his study room and look through his belongings. To their surprise, they find sketchbooks with paintings of the whole family. In the paintings, Yoshiko is seen walking with an umbrella. Nobuo is running. Hajime is on his bicycle, while Sachiko is doing a backflip on a playing bar. In the following scene, we see Hajime with Suzuishi playing Go while talking to her confidently. Yoshiko is working on her animations, while Sachiko is in the playground attempting to do a backflip. She finally manages to do one and freezes in shock. Just then, her giant self emerges from the ground and flies away to the sky. A giant sunflower also emerges from the same place and engulfs Sachiko. It grows bigger and bigger, ultimately taking over the whole world and turning into dust. At last, Sachiko levitates back to the playground. The movie ends as we are shown all the characters of the movie watching the beautiful sunset. Subscribe for more videos like this, turn on notifications, and leave a comment if you have any idea what the hell this movie was about. Thank you for watching.